have you all here. My name is Jamie Drag. I have lights, or be light. Now I can see all of you. So good morning, my name is Jamie Drag. I'm the director of the American Center. I know we have a select audience here today, but I'd still like to ask, just in case, for anyone here, raise your hand if this is your first time to the American Center. Anybody? I know I'm married. Wow, okay. I thought maybe you've all been here because it's a select group. Well, anyway, welcome back. A pleasure to have you all here today. Real pleasure today because to have you all here as part of the roundtable on heritage education for youth. This is a real unique partnership, which is part of something called the Communities Connecting Heritage Program. And a special guest, welcome our team from the U.S., from the Smithsonian. We have Betty Bellinas, you can wait, and Maya Potter, and then the other members of the team, Ashley Martinez, wait, and Mars Jones, and Violetta Palchik. Violetta. All right, we'll work on that. Apologies. So the Communities Connecting Heritage Program was funded by the U.S. Department of State and is administered by World Learning, seeks to empower youth and build partnerships between communities in the U.S. and communities in other parts of the world through projects that explore cultural heritage topics. So the purpose of this program is to preserve both tangible and intangible cultural heritage appreciation, well, to preserve and to appreciate tangible and intangible culture. For us here, it's been very exciting and a privilege to be a part of this program between our friends at banglanatak.com. Thank you, Rania. And as I just introduced, all of our friends from the Smithsonian Center for Folklife Festival and the accompanying American students. This program has been unique. I mean, we spent time with the team yesterday, and they explained, as you've seen some of the, if you saw some of the videos, they explained their journey and how it started at the, am I going to say, what was the name of the festival? The Sur Jahan Festival. And then they narrated how they saw so many types of music and culture there. And then before they went off into the villages with the artists, we snuck in a quick visit with our U.S. Ambassador Kenneth Juster, who was here last week. Some of you may have seen some of the pictures with some of the paintings and the bow singers last week over at Baitani. I really enjoyed that. And the team just explained how they went through the various, learning about the various arts, the Patachitra village in Pingla, the Terracotta in Vishnupur, the Dobra in Bigna and Bankura, and the famous bow village of Joydev. The team really enjoyed their experience. I guess short and sweet, but they packed in a lot and got to experience some of West Bengal's finest culture. And of course, they might be mad at me, but they also explained that in sharing culture, they managed to do a beautiful rendition of Little Red Riding Hood, I'm told, as well as singing one of our patriotic songs, This Land Is Your Land. So I'll just leave it there, but hey, that's all about cultural exchange. And if they want to say more about that, they can. But one of the students mentioned yesterday, at the end of the day, it's all about people-to-people connections, and that is really the nature of a lot of what we do here in the American Center, is bringing people together and helping people understand that we're all here together and the sharing and preserving appreciation and preserving cultures. There's not much, doesn't get much better than that. So let's make today a celebration of sharing and culture. Let's have fun. We welcome your insights. And so without further ado, I will stop talking. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jay Trebor, who's going to introduce, so we'll finish off the formalities and we'll hear from our team from the U.S. in just a moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. My name is Jay Trebor. I'm the Deputy Director here. So just enjoy yourselves and please be curious. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Betty Bellinas, who is the Educational Specialist at the Smithsonian Center, and Ananya Bhattacharya, the director of Contact Base and banglanatak.com, to give us a brief introduction, and then we're going to move on to our American guests and artists, and they're going to talk to you about their experiences.
Good morning to everyone. As many of you are aware, banglanatak.com's initiative Art for Life aspires to synergize cultural and economic development, and since 2005 we have been developing rural craft and cultural hubs where traditional communities are capacitated through skills transmission, through market promotion and direct market linkage to become grassroots micro-entrepreneurs. When we were first informed about the Communities Connecting Heritage program, we learned that the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage, they do a wonderful festival, and the theme of the festival this year is also community-based cultural industries. So that led to a lot of discussions, and Betty and I kind of thought that this was an opportune moment and to facilitate exchange between young cultural professionals in US and our young artist community. So that is in short the background of the initiative, Learning Together Towards a Brighter Future. So in the past few days, from 2nd of February, they have been going around and they'll be sharing their story, and then we'll have lots of discussion on heritage, on education, and on tools. That is the goal of today's program. And over to Betty.
So this project, which we've kind of like shorthanded as CCH Learning Together, was the first opportunity we've had to actually bring a group of our interns, who are the future cultural leaders of our country, really, on this kind of overseas exchange. And we've had just a very rich experience that we're still processing in our heads, thanks to what has been set up by our partners, Contact Base. It's been an incredible opportunity for us to extend our work past Washington, D.C., and to have brought this extraordinary group of young women to West Bengal for cultural exchange. And I think this experience will add to their education and what they will take forward into their careers in very interesting and fruitful ways. The discussion will continue via a virtual exchange as well, which we will do with the artists and with a wider group of interns at our office, virtual interns. So without further ado, I can't wait for you all to hear what the interns and the artists have to say about the experience. And I just want to say that I'm as proud as a peacock of these smart and accomplished young women who are here with us.
So now I'm going to pass it over to Ananya. I would ask each intern or artist to speak for about 5 minutes, and that'll leave about 8 to 10 minutes at the end for questions. And if there's a burning question, let's ask it. But in general, the people will speak, and then we'll do questions at the end. Please.
Thank you. We'll start with Maris. So over to her.
Today is actually a really important holiday where I come from. Mardi Gras means Fat Tuesday in French, and I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, which is a large cultural hub in the United States. Where I come from has influences from indigenous cultures, from African cultures, and from European cultures. And one of the things that really struck me when I came here was how the things that are so essential to where I'm from, food, music, the environment, all play a really big role here in West Bengal, and are really important parts of what it means to not only create cultural heritage, but maintain it going forward into the future. One of the things that struck me when I first arrived was that I'm from the Mississippi River Delta, and the Mississippi River is one of the biggest rivers in the world, definitely the biggest in the US. And I've come here to the land of the Ganges, and to be able to cross it for me was a really meaningful experience. And I've also seen the Nile, so having seen 3 really major world rivers was an incredible experience. And I think part of that is because in New Orleans and Louisiana more broadly, we are very focused on how to live with water. A lot of our food is based on what we can catch in the Gulf of Mexico and also in Lake Pontchartrain. We are surrounded by water on all sides, including the Mississippi River. So I really felt like I connected with Bengali food because of the amount of fish that you all eat here. Machbat was like every day, and I was super happy to eat it. My family is actually originally from the Bahamas. My father is from the US, he's from New Orleans, but my mom is from the Bahamas. So I'm a first-generation American as well as a multi-generation American. And so I grew up in many ways with the legacies of British colonialism. So that as well, when we were touring Calcutta, was really interesting for me to see the influence that it had on the architecture here. Speaking specifically to the art forms that we encountered here, New Orleans is the home of jazz, and Louisiana is the home of Zydeco music, which I'm sure most people know jazz or have heard jazz before, and know that it is a really soulful music. It is a music that expresses not only what people are feeling inside, but also how they are interacting with the world around them. And I really felt with my experience with the bowls, Enjoy them really connected me in a way that I didn't expect. And I'm so grateful that you opened your community to us to come and sit with you and to play with you. That really meant a lot to me. And just to close, I think I want to reflect on my experience when I was visiting the Patachitra village, Pingla. The storytelling is a really important part of it's an African American tradition. We have people in our communities called griots, or storytellers, who sort of keep the stories of our people and share them with others. And I felt really connected with that when I went to Pingla. But it wasn't until I came across a copy of a book focused specifically on the story of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement in the US. As a Black person who has experienced discrimination, and as the daughter of a man who lived through the civil rights movement and segregation in the US, my father was born in 1940, and he was there at the March on Washington, and he heard Martin Luther King speak. For me, I was so moved when I got to meet the artist who depicted the life of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement. And I felt very fitting because this month, February, is also Black History Month in the United States. So I think with that, I will say that I've learned so much and felt that there were so many opportunities for me to connect on an individual level with many of the artists and local people here. And I look forward to continuing this exchange in the future.
Thank you. We'll now move over to Somnath.
নমস্কার, আমার নাম সোমনাথ কর্মকার। আমি বিজ্ঞান ডোগরা গ্রাম থেকে এসেছি। এই 8 তারিখে যে স্মিথসোনিয়ান গ্রুপ আমাদের পাড়ায় গ্রামে এসেছিল এবং তাদের কাছ থেকে যেসব আইডিয়া পেয়েছি, যেমন আমাদের মিউজিয়ামটাকে আরও কীভাবে উন্নত করতে পারি। যেমন আমাদের যে মিউজিয়ামের প্রোডাক্টগুলো রাখা হয়েছে, সেই প্রত্যেকটা প্রোডাক্টের নেম প্লেট বানানো, যেমন তার নাম, কে বানিয়েছে, তার হিস্ট্রি কী, সেসব সম্বন্ধে। এছাড়াও আমরা তাদের কাছ থেকে আইডিয়া পেয়েছি যে আমাদের ডোগরা গ্রামে যেসব আর্টিস্ট ভালো আর্টিস্ট পুরস্কারপ্রাপ্ত, তাদের কাছ থেকে কিছু রেকর্ডিং করে রাখা, যে এই কাজের সম্বন্ধে, তাদের হিস্ট্রি। এবং আমরা এখন ফেসবুকের মাধ্যমে আমাদের ডোগরাটাকে আরও বেশি প্রচার করছি। যেমন বিদেশের আমেরিকান গ্রুপের সাথে কিছু জয়েন আছে, যেমন আমরা তাদের সাথে চ্যাট করি, এই নিয়ে কথা বলেছি।
Somnath is a dokra maker, and what he shared, that not only they explained that making process of that wonderful craft which you can see there, but they also got new ideas from the team which visited. They shared how they can say the stories of the exhibits in the museum, and how they can record about the living treasures, the living gurus in the village. Plus, he's very excited that they are chatting with you over virtual exchange and looks forward to more conversation. Okay, so now we'll move to Violeta.
Jai Guru. Hi, I'm Violeta Palchik. So I guess first I'll tell you a little about myself. I come from a mix of backgrounds. I'm an Argentine immigrant to the United States. I'm also Jewish. I'm also from the Washington, D.C. area and a New Yorker. So for me, identity and like belonging to a place is kind of a complex issue. But I feel like what it has done for me is it has allowed me to sort of exist with many different people in many different places and really be sort of flexible to that and understanding that. And so that's sort of what inspired me in studying anthropology and now folklore and trying to sort of help, especially in our country where we have so much diversity and so many different communities, to help them to understand each other in certain ways. For me in particular, food is the way that I like to connect people. I think everybody eats and everybody loves to eat, so it's an easy way to connect. When growing up, I think I always noticed the everyday, and that's why I studied folklore. It's the understanding of everyday things that maybe we take for granted sometimes, you know, how we tie our hair, or, you know, how we say hello, how we, you know, eat, how we play music, how we talk to each other. And so I think sometimes we overlook those things and we get scared when other people do it differently from us. And I think lots of times really we do things in a very similar way. It's just superficially different. So for me, this trip was really interesting because I'm in graduate school trying to learn the best way to sort of represent a culture in a way that's ethical and effective, so that we can learn to have a dialogue, a conversation, and understand each other. So I felt like through our trip we did that many times, and sometimes through conversations, sometimes you don't need words, sometimes through music with the Bao musicians, we felt their spirituality and the beauty of their world. You know, watching the sunset over mustard fields, you know, hanging out together, playing their bells with them, just like sitting in a circle and speaking through music. Even though I have no musical talent, you can ask these guys. I appreciate it and I love it, and it was nice to be a part of it. You know, for me, I jumped into the kitchen where we were staying too, and they were shocked because they weren't used to people coming in. They're like, what are you looking at? What do you want here? And sort of explaining that I wanted to learn, and doing what we called food jam with Manosh, where we cooked together sort of like a music jam session, but food jam session, and making food that was inspired by each other and our cultures and our flavors. I felt was really amazing. And then I really loved, this was another one where you didn't really need words to communicate, but hanging out with the children in the Patachitra village, and just, they were so affectionate and warm with us. You know, the second we got there, this little boy just grabbed my arm and started hugging it. And then I have a niece and a nephew, and I played with them and I tossed them up in the air, and I was doing that with him and he loved it. You know, all little kids like to be swung around. And, you know, they like using people as a jungle gym. So I thought just like connecting in these ways where, you know, it was things we do every day at home and things that are done every day here, and that we could kind of combine and bring together. For me, what's important is hearing everybody's voice, you know, meeting the children and seeing how they live their lives, meeting the people in the kitchen making our food, meeting musicians, like really learning not just their craft, but who they are as a whole person, and what their craft and their art means to them. So in conclusion, I feel like this trip has been very impactful, and I think that I've learned both about the pros and the cons of the work that Contact Base does, and I think I've learned a lot about Bengali culture and like really thinking about Bengali culture as opposed to, I think before I came here thinking like I was coming to India, but this is Bengal. And so I think what I've learned from this will inform my future work as a folklorist and how I think about cultural representation. ধন্যবাদ।
থ্যাংক ইউ। ওরা বললো যে তোমাদের গ্রামে গিয়ে যে শুধু তোমাদের কাজ না, বাচ্চারা ওদের সাথে যে ঘুরেছে, পটের গ্রামের কথা বললো, সেটা খুব ভালো লেগেছে, খাবারগুলো ভালো লেগেছে, আর গানের কথা তো বললোই। So since they have been sharing about the Baul songs, we'll now hear from Shadhu, his experience.
নমস্কার, আমি সাধু দাস, বাড়ি জয়দেব কেন্দ্রলি। তো এই যে আমি এখানে দলটি যেদিন আমাদের ওখানে যাই, সেই দিনকে আমাদের যে ন্যাচারালভাবে যে বাউল গান যেসব চর্চা হয়, সেরকম জায়গায় এদেরকে গান বাজনা শোনালাম অজয় নদীর একদম তীরে। এবং এদের যাওয়াতে শুধু আমাদের সম্মান নয় এবং আমাদের গ্রামেরও সম্মান বাড়ে, যে বাইরে থেকে লোকজন যখন আসে আমাদের এই যে বাউল গান এরকম যাওয়া আসা ইয়ে হলে আর কি আস্তে আস্তে এরকম ব্যাপার আর কি। আর তারপর একসাথে ওদের সাথে আমরাও একটা কোলাবোরেশন করলাম, ওদের দেশের একটা বিরাট বড় আর্টিস্টের গানটা।
They really enjoyed your trip and they felt that it kind of enhanced the respect for each other, not only respect for Baul music but for the village also, because you people all visited their village and he enjoyed the collaboration and listening to you about your music. Thank you. Okay, so now our next speaker is Ashley.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley Martinez. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. During my time at school I studied international studies and religion, and I just hope that you all can see from the selection of young women that were picked to take on this project that there's an incredible diversity in the United States. And you know, we are just three, but there are so many other cultures and religions and ways of thinking that are represented there as well. And I hope that you all get to really dive into that while visiting us. I'll tell you a little bit about my part as a New Mexican. So I'm part of a really rich culture that focuses on family, food, the building arts, music, and traditional craft. I live in a minority-majority state, so the majority of people in my area are either Hispanic or Native American. And this has added a lot to who we are and how we view diversity, because there are sovereign nations that are speckled within our state. Unlike West Bengal, I come from a desert community. So while you will have plentiful water and fish, I have very, very dry climate and a lot of beans, pinto beans in particular. So it was really nice to come here and to see something so different. For me, eating fish is not something I do often, so I really enjoyed it. And for me, that was one of the biggest leads into the culture. Because not only did I view the environment, I viewed the food that nourishes all of you. In particular, I have many interests involved with Spanish traditional craft, including retablo making. And with this in mind, I went into the Patachicha village, a village of storytellers, and was really interested in how they depicted deities and how they depicted everyday life. And I became very interested in having a collaboration, something that maybe we could really have a cultural exchange in. So along with Ananya, we are going to be working on them creating a retablo-inspired piece. So with this in mind, I'm thinking a lot of what sustainability means, and basically what I've taken from this experience is that you all are extremely committed to taking your crafts into the future. And I admire that immensely. That's something I will take back to my community and that I will share with traditional craftspeople. Because the models that you've created, while they are unique, they may have a place in the rest of the world. And it's something that we can all build upon. And I just want to thank you for hosting us, and I want to just thank you for sharing.
থ্যাংক ইউ অ্যাশলি। অ্যাশলি বললো যে তোমাদের পটের গ্রামটা কত ভালো লেগেছে, তোমরা যেভাবে গল্পগুলো বলো, আর ওদের একটা হিস্প্যানিক ট্র্যাডিশন আছে, ওরা চায় পরে ওই নিয়ে কোলাবোরেশন করবে, আর অন্যদের গ্রামেও আর্টের কাজ ওদের খুব ভালো লেগেছে, আর পরে কি করে এটাকে আরো তুলে ধরা যায় এই নিয়ে আমরা যখন তোমরা ভার্চুয়াল এক্সচেঞ্জ করবে আরো ভাববে। ওকে, নাও উইল মুভ ওভার টু কল্লোল।
Good morning, everybody. I am Kallol Bhattacharya from Bardhaman. I established a theatre group in '94 in my village named Satkahunia in the district Bardhaman. Ebongamra is the name of our theatre group. 30 members of our group mostly comes from the local underprivileged community and from the tribal community. Our group Ebongamra has developed a theatre village on 4-acre land in the village Satkahunia. This is the one and only theatre village cum rural cultural center in West Bengal. We run various training, workshops, seminars, festivals in our campus, and we are running poultry, fishery, agricultural activities to generate income for our regular artists. Last 9th February, the Smithsonian group visited our theatre village, and on that day we arranged a performance, a theatre performance for them, and also they arranged a short performance for us, and we have discussed a lot of things, mainly how we can develop our campus as a complete cultural center, and we have discussed how we can run a regular training for our rural children, school children, for the children who are coming from the tribal community, from the underprivileged community, and we are interested to sharing our experience, our dreams with them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All of the in-person exchange team, they've mentioned Patachitra, and we have Shonali here, so she wants to have a word.
আমি সোনালী চিত্রকর, পশ্চিম মেদিনীপুর পিংলা নয়া গ্রাম থেকে এসেছি। আমি ফটোর গান গাই এবং ছবি আঁকি। এনারা আমাদের গ্রামে গিয়েছিলেন, আমাদের ভীষণ ভালো লেগেছে। ওনাদের একটা গল্প বলেছে আমাদেরকে, আর আমরা একটা গল্প বলেছি ওদেরকে। তো ওনারা বলেছেন যে ওদের গল্পটা আমরা পট বানিয়ে ওদেরকে হোয়াটসঅ্যাপের মাধ্যমে ছবি পাঠাবো, ওনারা আমাদেরকে আবার পাঠাবে, কেমন লেগেছে সব বলবে। তো ওনাদেরকে আমরা ন্যাচারাল কালার দেখিয়েছি, শিখিয়েছি, গান শুনিয়েছি, আমাদের খুব ভালো লেগেছে।
So Shonali said they're really nice and they explain natural color and have sung songs and have told stories, and you have also told very interesting stories, and they look forward to developing a scroll together with you. Okay, now I'll ask Orpon to share about the good journey.
Yeah, good morning everyone. All of them has shared their own feelings, their own experience. I just want to share two things which I have noticed from myself. One, Betty has shared an excellent story with Patachitra artists about the Washington DC Mall, on which they are going to develop a scroll painting, and we will share the development process in our virtual exchange with them. So they are very excited to do that. They will make the song and everything. And next on 8th we visited Joydev Kenduri, and on Okay, I'm quite loud, I think. On that day, that was Maya's birthday, so we celebrated that in our own way. We have gifted her some mustard flower from the mustard field, and Sadhu, Kangal, all of them has played Happy Birthday in their dotara, and they have sing a song of Modi Guthrie, which we all jammed together. Violetta was there with the bells, and we enjoyed the entire trip a lot. Even she and Manoj, they cooked very well. We enjoyed the food too. So that was the, we called it food jamming. So that was the entire experience of our trip. So we are really looking forward for the future exchange programs. Thank you.
Apart from these visits, I also went to Vishnupur and also went to Shantiniketan and Vishwabharati. So would you like to say anything on that? And for the rest of you, if you have any questions for them.
I just wanted to say that a lot of cultural sharing happened in the van because we were in that van for a really long time, hours and hours. So we were sharing music that we were able to tap into from these young women's devices. So, and Arpan and Manash were sharing some music with us that they had along, and Kajol too. And to me, that time too was really important for our both teams to learn from one another.
I work as a project assistant at the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage in Washington, D.C. And the department I work for is smaller and newer, and we work only on cultural sustainability. So we have projects, we work on international projects. We will be starting some domestic ones as well, but we work on projects in Western China with Tibetan communities. We're working in Armenia, and we're also about to start a project in Bhutan. So I'll be there actually later this year. And we work with communities to sustain the culture that matters to them, whether that's language or craft or music. A lot of the work that we do is community driven. So partnership is key. And we sort of do this work in a number of ways. There's documentation, market access, festivals and museum work, as Betty was saying, capacity building, trainings, and then a big part of it's also voice and visibility. So highlighting, supporting the careers of artists and culture bearers from around the world through the festival, through articles written on our Folklife magazine, our online magazine. So we're busy. But we are, I think cultural sustainability, a lot of the conversation has been in the past about cultural preservation, but we think about it a little differently, about cultural sustainability, because there's always an interaction between the past, the present, and the future. And artists like, Shonali or our Bowel friends as well are always making different, or our theater friends are always making very specific choices about how to connect with people today, and what to draw from the past, and what to bring to the future. And so we're really inspired by those conversations, and we know that tradition is not a stagnant thing. So that's been a really amazing thing to learn from everyone here. And may I speak for just a moment about my own experience? So this is my first time to Bengal, but not to India. So my mom is from Gujarat, and my dad is from Connecticut. When before coming, I heard again and again, oh, Bengalis are so cultured, and it's so culturally rich. But I wondered, I was like, what does it mean to be cultured? Like, we all have culture, so how can you be rich in culture? How can you have more culture? And so I've been asking everyone, but also then I started thinking, well, I was like, what is culture? I think I know what it is, but what is it, and why does it matter? And I think for those of us who work in this sector, we feel very passionate about it, but why is it important? So after being here, I think Bengal gets its reputation. This is my guess, because of its strong engagement with culture on a day-to-day basis. And I see that from the work that banglanatak does, but you also see that with, from our colleagues at banglanatak, Orban and Manoj are always, they know so many songs, and every occasion we'll bring up a song. It'll be a Baul song or a Tagore song, or just walking around the streets, sort of seeing all the incredible institutions that have shaped not only Bengal but India and the world. So I think that yes, we are all culture bearers, but as Americans, we come from a country that's rich in cultural heritage and has incredible diversity. But I think that what I've learned here is just that to recognize the role, to embrace the role of a culture bearer, and to value it. So I'm very grateful for that. And then in terms of why culture matters, I'm not sure, but I think I had a professor that said that culture is a transversal element, and this is what Violetta was talking about before. But it's so if language is not just how we communicate; it's our poems and our literature, and craft is not just beautiful, it's also the material, it's what's around us, in our homes and what we wear. And music is not just sort of beautiful to listen to, but it connects us to the divine and to bigger philosophies. And so for me, that's what I've learned here. And I think that often we can't see our own culture until we start engaging with someone else's. And then all of a sudden we can see our own, their own, and our common humanity. So I'll just say one more thing, which was that at the Bhattacitra village, it was where we were all very inspired, but I realized that, painting is not just about a beautiful picture. It's not just pretty. It's that the artist has a very important job. And, we listen to the stories of Manisha and Radhakrishna, Mahabharata, and all these sort of Hindu mythological stories, but what impacted me in particular was the tsunami story, because that's one that we all know all over the world. And so to see these paintings and hear these songs about people drowning in the water, helicopters coming to rescue them, and to see the tsunami as a demon face, it was pretty amazing, because it reflected all of our humanity back to us. Our life, our death, our love, our marriage, pain, joy, loss, these anyone can connect to. And then all of a sudden I started seeing Radhakrishna differently, even though I don't know that story very well, but I knew that same humanity was in all of those. So there was an eternal story there. So
after hearing all of you, I just would like to go back to Maris. So she mentioned about the scroll that she liked on the Martin Luther King. We know about it because this is actually, for years, this design interventions are happening from designers and even from our institute. The reason why this particular exercise was successful is because the Potachitra artists, the kind of features that they use in their figurines match with the figure that you saw in the narrative of Martin Luther King. I have seen that, so I know what is there. So when we are talking about these collaborations and building up new scrolls between cultures, we also have to keep in mind because I am a design faculty, I am talking in terms of the design aspect. We need to keep in mind that if you are doing in terms of Washington DC, you have to realize that the Potachitra artists are aware of drawing figures in a particular style, and that is the essence of the Potachitra. So we have to retain the cultural aspect, the style which is Potachitra, and then build up a new story. And that's why she appreciated, because it was actually possible, because that is a black history and their figures are very similar in terms of the elements and the look of the person that they are drawing.
So I hand it over to Jay for the next round. Want to have a question?
I had a few questions. To me, it was noteworthy that 5 women came from the United States. I'm wondering what you could speak on women as artists and the women you've met on your trip, and maybe any connections or things to take back from that experience.
Thank you for asking that question. It's a very important question because, as we all know, a lot of times women are underrepresented in the world. And coming here, we were so captivated by the many women that we met that while developing our exhibition, which I hope you will all have a chance to see, one of our themes in itself was women. And we wanted to to show you the beauty that we saw.
So, Iftihar Hassan, well-known, I would say a player in cultural preservation of our city, and a friend. Can you talk to us about what you're doing, Calcutta Walks, and how you incorporate heritage in your work?
I'm more comfortable out on the streets than I'm in roundtable discussions. But yeah, so say 12 years ago, I had some friends who came down, and part of them were from Turkey, part of them were from the US. So I started, with all due respect, we hired a local tour guide and we took them around, and we had a very ordinary day. And that was surprising for me, because I have always felt so strongly about the city. And I'm saying, how could she not be able to translate that spark from the city into the tour? And so I told my friends that, tomorrow morning, let's just go out and I'll take you around. And I didn't know anything about, I don't know anything about the city today also, but back then I didn't know even more. And it was surprising that we had a ball of a time, just trying to go out on the streets and interacting with people, interacting with the neighborhoods that I liked, the buildings that I enjoyed, the communities that I identified with. So I just took them around, and they had a ball of a time, I had a ball of a time, and one thing led to another, to it becoming a permanent company in which, so they say most startups, if they cross the age of 5 years, then the chances of them failing become really slim. They fail in the first 3 years, so it's been 12 years. And we still see ourselves as a startup, but a startup who's in the game for the long run, not for the short. Jay, how much time do you have?
Each person about 5 to 7 minutes.
All right. Because I could go on.
I know, you're doing great.
So that started it all, and since then we've just been taking people around, showing them very interesting neighborhoods of the city that a lot of the native residents, of course, are also not aware of, and they like to go out with us, and they enjoy it as much as. So last Saturday we had a group of 200 super rich people of the city, part of the Fiki ladies group, and they were out on the streets of the city, experiencing and savoring it with so much delight that it really warms our hearts to see that happening, because when somebody is coming in from outside, everything is new for them. But for somebody who's living in the city and has been living here all their time, and then they go out and they appreciate what they're seeing through our eyes, through our stories, through our explanations, then it really warms our heart that, we are doing something really tangible. Because some of that love may translate into reusing of these buildings, some of it may translate into restoration, some of it may translate into more money being pumped into bringing something back from the dead into its one state of beauty, rather than destroying it for forever, which is something that we see every day, the destruction of the heritage locations of the city. So I personally feel that, of course, there's intangible heritage and tangible heritage, and in both these categories, I think Calcutta trumps most other cities of the world, because I think there's so much beauty in the city. And the analogy I like to give is, it's something I use on the tour to hold it works, so let's see if it works with you. See, I say every hamburger in the world needs a butchery. And most of the developed cities of the world have a wonderful cosmetic layer concealing the burger and the butchery. So you don't see one from the other. But thankfully, Calcutta lacks that cosmetic layer. And for good or for bad, you can have your burger and look at the butchery at the same time. And that really works for me. I don't know if it works for everyone, but there's a certain level of honesty on the streets. And it's not a city where looks are a concern. It's not a city where, but yes, it's a city where they do check your humanity level at every stage. They do check your, sometimes they, especially if you're in the Bengali neighborhood, they do check your intellectual level at certain level. But in most other parts of the city, your humanity is constantly being honed and groomed. And I think that is the beauty of living in any place with many other people. Because as this lady on the TED talk, she said, I forget her name, she said, we progressed in all aspects of our lives except our humanity. And I think that's so true, because the destruction that you see in the world is just based on a lack of humanity, nothing else. But coming back, so we So I've been doing this for like 12 years, and I really enjoy it. Even today when I step out every single morning or afternoon when we are doing the tours, I see the city with so much fresh eyes and so much fresh potential that I see there's so much that can be done with the city. And all my friends who've left the city, they come back and say, what do you see in the city? And I'm like, if you can't find something to do in a city of 14 million people, where in the world can you find something to do? I mean, this is prime audience. Of course, it's a low-paying audience, but still a prime audience. If you made 1 rupee off each person, you'd be making 40 million rupees a day. How much more do you need to live in Calcutta? So I think there's a huge amount of potential, a tremendous amount of potential in reclaiming our heritage, in kind of using it, and a lot of it still remains thanks to the economic stagnation of the city. I mean, as bad as that may sound, but because of that, a lot of it still remains, and it still can be reclaimed and reused and revitalized. So after seeing so many buildings being destroyed, I couldn't bear it any longer. So I went and bought an old house in the northern part of the city in an area called Shambazar. And it's taken forever. It's taken more than like 2.5, 3 years now to put all time, energy, effort, money in restoring it. But we managed to restore half the building. And we're going to open it up soon, maybe another month or so. And that will be our gift to the city and to ourselves for working with heritage and be able to restore that heritage. And then in the course of this, we try to employ as many local artisans as possible, especially revive the art of Chun Surki wall plaster, which is something that kind of died out, but we've used those artisans who are still doing it. There's a very small group of artisans that still know how to work that art. And the plaster involves all kinds of things, including half the things they use as foodstuff. I mean, they use the pulp of the bale fruit, they use jaggery, they use fenugreek seeds, they use betel nuts, they use all kinds of crazy food things into the wall plaster. And apparently that makes the wall last longer. So, and it makes it more resilient. But the point being that we've tried to use as many local crafts as possible, we've tried to revive as many local, use as many local things as possible. Like we went for casting of iron to Lilua, and we see there's a huge industry there doing cast iron work. And interestingly, ever since we ordered them, I'm not saying I was the cause of it, but I'm saying ever since we ordered from there, we've seen that they've got orders from Bangkok for some old parts they were rejuvenating, they've got orders from other parts of India from some parts they're rejuvenating. So I think Calcutta has this potential to be this huge hub of restoration materials that can be procured from here, including cast iron, including old timber, including furniture, including the cement floors, including and most importantly the artisans. I mean, we are a state of 100 million people. If we could provide artisans to the world to do restoration jobs, I think there's a huge market waiting to be tapped into. I think I'll stop at that.
Now we're going to move from the streets to the digital area. I'd like to have Ranga and Dato talk a little bit about your blog and how you tell the city stories through your blog.
I am a digital person, but I spend most of the time roaming the city. So it's a travel blog basically, but it's more concentrated on Bengal and Calcutta. As I told you, and I write on any valid topic on Calcutta mainly. So I've written about Rangi, it's the official hereditary profession of Italy. And I've written about something interesting. The first time when I got an invitation to talk out here, I checked out the website of Smithsonian Cultural Heritage and so far. The first article I attracted my attention was about Armenia. And it said Armenian Christmas is celebrated on 6th of Jan, not on 25th of December. And in Calcutta, we also have Armenian community. We used to have a strong Armenian community, but still we have a small Armenian community. And the Armenians have the distinction of having the oldest Christian church in Calcutta, 1707. And they still celebrate Christmas on 6th of Jan. And as I was going through the article in your website, I could relate that we have a very interesting part of Armenia, small Armenia, round out in our city. So this is something I have written about already. And then see most of my American friends have a valid culture. Some from Argentina, some from Bahamas, you're from India. So Calcutta has also been a melting pot for people. Armenians have been a part of Calcutta even before the Europeans arrived, and they had a distinction of the first nation change. And you would say another community that will be celebrating a New Year day after tomorrow is the Chinese. So Chinese is a strong community in Calcutta, and they have a very interesting culture out there. A lot of temples and Buddhist structures like Taoism, Confucianism, and I saw the Chinatown celebration in Penang. They showed us a video, and it's more of a it's a curated event, I would say. More of a curated event, the streets are decorated, but here also you have a celebration which is not curated. It's straight on the street. So you get a street feeling. So this is something I would say is very unique to Calcutta. So, and about people leaving the city, what you pointed out is that, and that's an interesting statistic about the Chinese in Calcutta. So most of the Chinese in Calcutta, obviously after 1962 Indo-China war, the trading back to them. So most of the Chinese after started leaving the city, and most of them settled in Toronto in Canada. And presently in Toronto, Canada is an interesting thing, they have a Chinatown and they have a separate group of Calcutta Chinese out there. And when I first started writing about the Calcutta Chinese in my blog, it was the Toronto Chinese, Calcutta Chinese, who first approached me and said that supply me more information and supply me contacts in the city. So you see, the connection took place from Toronto to Calcutta and back to Calcutta. So they played a linkage between the two, and I am now very familiar with the Calcutta Chinese community also. Interesting statistics I want to share is that Calcutta, Toronto has about 3,000 Calcutta Chinese, and Calcutta has about 2,000 Chinese. So this is a very interesting thing, and just get back to about interesting Chinatown, and it's one of the oldest Chinatown outside the Southeast Asia. Much older than Toronto, London, Sydney, San Francisco and all. I just tell a very interesting story of how the Chinatown originated. So there's a gentleman named Tom Ashi. It was 1781. He was coming to Calcutta. He was a tea merchant. He was coming to Calcutta to sell his tea. So tea was a very important British product at the time. British loved tea. So when he was coming through the river, about 30 kilometers south of Calcutta, he got down from the river and somehow, for unknown reasons, he liked the place. And he wanted to build a sugar mill and a sugar plantation out there. In fact, the Bengali word for sugar is chini, which comes from China. So interesting thing is that chini. So, but yeah, he started a plantation and he did not rely on the Indian workers. So he got a labor force from his own country, and the sugar mill and plantation started. But actually died about 3 or 4 years later. And the place was abandoned. And probably the Chinese who were working in the mills came back to Calcutta for work. And the interesting thing that happened is that place is now known as Achipur, named after Chinese. So we have a place named after Chinese very near to Calcutta. And on the second Sunday after Chinese New Year, that is coinciding on 25th of February, all the Chinese of Kolkata will be going to Achipur, which still has a very old Chinese temple, and we still have the grave of Achi. So Calcutta Chinese still reveal that Achi is the ancestor who started the Calcutta Chinatown. So this telling you, I think most of you spoke on food March path in Bengali, and let me concentrate on a very important Bengali food which you have already had, is the Rasgulla. Yeah. So, and just a few months ago we have a big debate with the Odisha that who was the founder of Rasgulla, and obviously in the Calcutta got the GI status. And let me tell you that Rasgulla comes from a thing called, which in Bengali called a chana. It's, you just add lime into your milk and it's disintegrates into chana. And this is something which was introduced by the Portuguese. So Rasgulla, also we had a fight between the two Indian states, but Rasgulla, the ingredient of original Rasgulla originates from the Portuguese, not from India. So Portuguese has a lot of influence. They brought in the potatoes from Brazil and a lot of influence in the Bengali food that we eat today. And then this thing about which I am talked about is the bandage cheese. So Bandel is a colony which is about north of Calcutta, 50 kilometers north of Calcutta. It was a Portuguese colony, but obviously it was later on taken over by the British. And the Portuguese out there produced this chana to make a very special type of cheese which is known as Bandel cheese. Now, the Bandel cheese is being produced in, it's not only produced in Bandel, it's produced in somewhere near Vishnupur. I think you have been to Vishnupur, famous for its temples, but somewhere near Vishnupur they produce the cheese nowadays, and it's sold by about 3 or 4 shops only in the market. It's not available anywhere in the world. So recently, I will say how my blog creates awareness about history and heritage. So recently I have been approached by the food technology department in Jadavpur University, and they are trying to document this Bandel cheese and put it in a scientific way of production so that it can be exported and given a GI status, something like that. So they have already done the basic research on the production, and we have seen that since it's produced on a very uncontrolled environment, it's not very classified. Okay, so you get a lot of things which are not suitable for exporting and even not very good for human consumption also. So actually the problem we are right now facing is that we have already approached the shops in new market, but they are not disclosing the place of manufacturing. They are probably thinking that we may get into a business and take over the monopoly. So we are still trying it out. We want to go to a place of manufacture and get it, standardize this cheese and put it in the international market. So these are the things that are coming up through blog. This is what I'm saying. So like just go to my Chinese friends from Toronto in Calcutta connected me to Calcutta Chinese. This is a project I am taking about. Another one thing Anandadi also knows about is fanush. Fanush is a very interesting Indian activity. You know of the Chinese lanterns. So you just have a piece of paper, smaller piece of paper, and you put up well below it, okay? And air gets hot and you leave it and it goes up the sky. And if you see the Chinese lanterns which have let off in thousands during the night time, obviously you get a whole sky being illuminated with the lanterns. But Bengal has a similar technology, same principle of flying dish fanush, but these are not flown during the night time, they are flown in the daytime. And they come in all sorts of various shapes, okay? They come in all sorts of various shapes, okay? They can be starting from the planet Saturn to stars, to moons, the crescent of a moon. They can be even a skull and crossbones. They can be a flower vase and a lot of things, okay? So recently I have been working on this fanush for the last about 7 or 8 years. I have been blogging when I started blogging. And at the time it was a very dying art. At the time it was a very dying art. But within these 10 years, we have already found a community of fanush flyers in Calcutta. Fanush flyers and fanush lovers. It takes a lot of patience to make a fanush. I have never tried making a fanush. But I am part of the club as promoting the fanush to other people. And in recent times, what we have done is that we have made fanush. We have used scientific, there are people who have come from engineering backgrounds, and making a fanush has been properly documented using software like AutoCAD and other engineering documents. Okay, so now anyone can get into that thing, cut out the paper and stick it and fly the fanush. So this is something that has happened through my blog. There are other things also happening through my blog. Another area I mainly work on is the terracotta temples of Bengal. And again, it's a big project. And you cannot just fanush and panel, these are smaller projects, but you cannot restore a terracotta temple right on. Okay, there are a lot of technicalities involved, a lot of legal places involved. One thing I really feel sad about terracotta temple is that people are not aware of the importance of the temple. So you have villages, many of the villages where people have said that we have removed the terracotta plates and replaced them with marble slabs. And they feel proud of it. Okay? Because marble is more expensive than terracotta. And the main thing we have to do is that we have to create awareness to the people that this is a heritage, it needs to be preserved. It should not be rebuilt. Most of the heritage things, I think the heritage restoration and the rebuild things have become almost synonymous in most of the rural areas in Bengal. So people try to rebuild a temple and show that we have a new temple out here, come and see. They don't want to restore their old temple. And obviously there are problems, you don't get additions to do the work. But I think this should be done through blogs or other activities to create awareness about maintaining the restoration, not rebuilding of heritage.
Mr. Datta, thank you so much.
Thank you.
On my left we have Sahib Sharma, who is a radio personality, and I would like to know how radio can be used in the same way. How can you use radio to tell stories, and can you share that with us, please?
By the way, Shai happens to be my student.
Oh wow! Great.
Hello all, I'm Sahib and I run an internet-based radio station called Radio banglanatak. And since 2012 we are having 10 different radio stations, like radio streams which are being broadcasted through internet, and anybody can access from any part of the world quite naturally and through any of the devices like smartphones, smart cars, smart readers, smart TVs, etc. And the interesting part is Bengali is probably the only language where somebody writes 2,500 songs and it becomes a genre. I'm talking about Tagore songs, or as we say in Bengali, Ranushungi. There is so much of folk life. There are like Ananda is there, Anandabi is there, and definitely she can, or other people definitely can talk about folk music. Like I'm not that much enriched, but একমাত্র এমনটা একমাত্র বাংলাতেই সম্ভব, যেখানে আমরা প্রত্যেক 20-30 কিলোমিটার যদি অগ্রসর হয়ে এগিয়ে যাই বা পিছিয়ে যাই, তাহলে গানের ধারা পাল্টে যায়। We are being edgy, we are being smart, we are being so much and so forth, but এই গানগুলো বা শুধুমাত্র বাংলায় নয়, in any folk life, in any language, এই যে ডিজিটাল প্ল্যাটফর্মগুলো, সেখানে এইটার একটা মিসিং আছে, এটা আমরা পাই না। অ্যান্ড সেই জায়গাটা থেকে আমার মনে হয়েছে যে আমরা যদি এমন একটা ইন্টারনেটে এমন একটা এনভায়রনমেন্ট তৈরি করতে পারি যেখানে সেটাই আমি শুনবো না যেটা আমাকে শোনানো হবে। অ্যান্ড মিউজিক, যদি মিউজিকের কথা হয়, মিউজিকটা একটা কমার্শিয়াল প্রোডাক্ট, ডেফিনেটলি সমস্ত কিছুই কমার্শিয়াল পণ্য হিসেবেই আমরা দেখে থাকি, বাট স্টিল তার একটা আমরা যত বেশি বুঝবো, তত বেশি আমরা জিনিসটাকে আমাদের মধ্যে ছড়িয়ে ফেলতে পারবো। And আমি অনেকটা বুঝে গেছি এমন নয়, বাট স্টিল কিছুটা তো আমি পেয়েছি।
Mr. Sharma, thank you very much. I was hoping to give Ananya a chance to kind of translate that for our American guests, if you don't mind.
Shahid runs internet radio station and he was sharing why he's doing it. So he explained how in Bengal there are like 2,500 songs written by Tagore, and we have a whole genre called Rabindra Sangeet. And there are also other genres also in this country. As you know, every 20, 30, 40 kilometers you'll come across a different genre of music, and he says that is also true across the world. So he feels that with technology we have the opportunity of listening to and learning about different kinds of music, and not only what is being thrown upon you or something like that. So we have that choice. That is what internet radio enables us to do, and that inspired him to start this.
I'm also marvelous. Oh.
Just to explain this, when Ifte was talking, we have two communities here, Bengali community and Marwari community, who came in and did the trading, and they own most of the businesses, and we have a perennial tribe, nothing serious but joking, Marwari and Bengali. So when Ifte was sharing, Jayati said that usually Marwaris are more interested in business and not culture. So Shahid says, I am also a Marwari.
Thank you very much. Staying on this idea of technology, I want to move to our final speaker, R.G. Bhattacharya, who I know is using technology to tell very old tales in very novel ways. Please.
I think I'm one of the odd men out here. So what we do, we actually make games. We actually make animation. I was 17 when I started my company in 1998, and people used to call me mad because I was trying to dig about the Indian culture, the Sindhu culture, and wanted to marry a technological background with that same. And wanted to create some kind of superhero characters out of that. Slowly I understood if you have to tell something to the world, you need to tell a story. Now to create a story, you need few of the platforms. So I chose gaming as one of my key platforms to tell the stories. Stories about few of the characters which is there in our mythology. I think some of you can relate to it. Here I have a character called Mahishasur, who is a demon basically from a very old tale of Durga versus Mahishasur. How Durga killed that particular character. So what we have done, we have actually created a few of the characters taken from mythology in a completely different way altogether, so that people can relate to it. We are talking about gaming world. So I have got 250 million user base across the globe who are playing our games. And they play these kind of games with the assumption that they are playing games, but when they actually finish it, they actually learn the whole storyline. So it's a completely different kind of storytelling process. So initially you don't tell that what exactly is going on, but when you go on, you explore the whole thing. And I have another character called Kumbhakaran, which is a sci-fi character which we have created. Certainly if you dig into the Pali and Sanskrit, honestly that's my passion, although I'm not a PhD into that. That's only a passion, mere passion. I traveled in and across India, traveled to Himalayas as well, understood the old Puthis and cultures and all, and understood that on that particular very time, yes, there was science. And when you dig into it, I found there was nanotechnology as well. Now if you want to relate those kind of cultures, these are some kind of snapshots of one of the game called Ashwatthama, the Immortal. It is a character from Mahabharata, and there is a myth that the character is still alive in Himalayas. That's a myth. But if you dig into it, you will find in Dehradun area there is a temple of this particular fellow, and he actually travelled towards Angkor Wat. And if you look at the total artwork that we have done, it is actually simulated from those temples. I sent people, took the pictures, they came back, and the character that you're watching, it is from a real life person. We actually 3D simulate real life model, actor and actress to make the gaming character. So in that way what happens, you get immediate popularity that some actor is tweeting about your game. Okay, and I'll tell you the background story. Indian superhero is actually started from a character called Shaktiman. Okay, the whole concept was creating a superhero from the power of yoga. And the person who created this is Mr. Mukesh Khanna. So I communicated with that fellow and asked him that very nicely, can I recreate your character? Can I connect it with the roots and all? Can I do that? So he agreed, and we actually again 3D simulated him. He's old now, approximately 70 years old, but the character that you're watching is completely a different kind of personality with muscles and all, which we have to 3D create so that people can connect. And you won't believe, in China, in a theme park, this character's idol is already there. Wow. This game is already published, and we have got 2 different titles of that particular game. And through this channel, what we are doing, I'll be showing you. I'll come back to this slide. So these are some of the celebrities from Calcutta. So maybe people from Calcutta, they can connect, whom we have 3D simulated. Few models. I'll come back to that. Okay, fine. Now what we are doing through these games, we are actually selling some kind of stuff, which in our world we call it as cosplay. The full form is costume play. So what we are doing, we are making a 3D character, making a 3D dress out of it. Once the user plays it, he earns some amount of virtual currency. And we tie up with the local stores, not in India, specifically in southeast part of Asia. We tie up with the local stores and tell them we are going to give you the exact similar dress in your shop. You just put it in your shop and I'll give you consumers. So in a day, I'm going to give you minimum 150 valid turned consumers. Okay, we will be there, redeem your virtual currency with a percentage of 5% and buy the dress. And the interesting story, all these dresses are actually done by the very poor people who are from northeast part of India and few part of Rajasthan as well. You're from Rajasthan, so I have a location called Kucham, where we actually teach puppet animation to the people who are doing puppet shows. Wow. We are teaching people how to knit all these kind of fashionable garments, like this is my world, or rather our world, where we actually teach this kind of high fashion stuff to these kind of poor people who can produce it, and we are selling it through the games. So few of other works, we have used models so that it becomes popular, so that you can actually merchandise it.
I am C.P. Ghoshal. I teach in a school which is 189 years old in North Calcutta. And the school has a very rich background. Our great poet Rabindranath Tagore had a brief stint of his elementary education in the school in 1867. And many stalwarts of the Bengal Renaissance of the 19th century, they also had their school life spent in the premises of our school. That apart, Mr. W.C. Banerjee, Umesh Chandra Banerjee, who was the first president of Indian National Congress, he was a student and the president of the managing committee of the school from 1896 to 1906. And the baton was taken over from him by Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, and he was the president of the school till 1922, and from him the baton was taken over by Bhupendranath Dutta, another stalwart. And the school has its name in the history of the Bengali theatre too, as the students of the school had set up a theatre group called Oriental Theatre in the 1853-54. And I am grateful to my school for presenting before me such a rich past that instilled in me a sense of societal nostalgia. And in my turn, I tried to instill in the students the same nostalgia under the cover of heritage awareness. It was in 1998 that the school was accorded heritage status by Kolkata Municipal Corporation. And I started my research work on the school's history right from that period. I worked for 20 years on the school's history. And the first thing that I ransacked my school library and the other libraries of the city, and also I talked to the resourceful persons who are Calcutta experts. I talked to them and collected the materials and documents. But I was trying to make my students aware of the history of my school. How could I do that? As a teacher in English of my school, I tried to find the plug points in my subject where I can connect the students to the local history of the city, of my area, because the school is situated in the area of Old Calcutta, which was known as Shutanuti. And you know, Chitpur area is, you can call it a living museum of Kolkata. And three things combined in my effort of beginning the heritage activities in my school. One is the rich history of the school, the second is the antiquity of the place, and the third was a festival. I'll talk about it a little later. Now, I started talking about the history of the school and the area, the locality, to the students in my classroom. And I found that it was not enough. I tried to involve the ex-students of the school, the Alumni Association. But I found that it is not that they don't love the school, it's not that they love the school less, but they love their own school days more. So I didn't get substantial support from them. In the meantime, a new teacher joined in my school. She was very young and energetic. I got her as my assistant. And in 2015, I was toying with the idea of setting up an archive. And in 2014, the school got a fair amount of money from the local MP, the Member of Parliament. And I rather approached the school authority to allocate an amount of funds from that to set up the archive in the school, and the school authority was ready to do that. We renovated a room, and the archive was opened on 9th May 2015. 9th May, some of you know, is called Punchishe Boishak, that is Tagore's birthday. So we opened the archive on that day to celebrate the birthday of the great poet who was our student. Now, then we started fortnightly visits by the students. We used to take the students to the archive to make them aware of the history of the school. It's we made 4 sections in the archive, each divided into 50 years. And fortunately for us, in 2016, early 2016, we were invited by the Education Department, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, to attend a workshop conducted by INTAC. INTAC, you know, Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, which is an organization of the central government. We attended a 2-day workshop, and this workshop ignited in us the idea of setting up a heritage club in our school. The heritage club was opened with the students. There are 30 members in our heritage club, and the club conducts regular meetings of the students under the guidance of INTAC. The students go on visiting local museums. We hold small exhibitions and quiz contests, video presentations on the heritage of Kolkata. And on the World Museum Day last year, we organized a large-scale exhibition on our little old things. The idea was to ask the students to find out the very old things at home and collect the information about its background from the elderly members of the family and bring those things for using as exhibits in the museum. It was a great success. People who came to visit the museum, it was a revelation to them. They couldn't think that simply memories, sentimental associations, attachments could add values to old things, even if they are of little use in reality. They had no idea that such old things could be of so much value. And the students also had a rich experience there, and I could show the activities of the students and the exhibition, but I was told that there are some restrictions about bringing them here, so I can't show them. And one thing that I realized myself, and I told the students also, students now realize that the learning of history, the idea of the heritage awareness begins at home. The problem with our schools is that they try to make the students chew the dry bones of history remotely connected to their life or society. That's the problem. But I tried to make the students understand that the road to history, the awareness of history begins at the doorstep and it leads to the wider world. It's not the other way around. That's where our learning of history should start. We also bring out a journal focusing on the local history, that is the history of our school area and Kolkata. And I have told my students that the only thing you have to do is to look around in awareness. Thank you.
Heritage that one has to value is the youngsters who can give it the impetus that is required for the next generation, because when they can value their own lineage, which comes from the homes, would lead to the world. So I think it's really nice that you've been able to put the children's attention from home and then take them to the world outside. I really am amazed with this approach in the schools. And if other schools can share this, I think it will make all the change.